Verse 102. Mind, and here the word for mind is given as Citta, is the Alayavijnana. Manas is that which has reflection as its characteristic nature. It apprehends the various sense fields, for which reason it is called a Vijnana. This is one of the threads that's been running through the verses, and these terms have been referred to several times. Video 15, for example, was on consciousness. Video 10 was on Vijnana. And here we are again. As I said in the previous video, these things aren't doctrines or concepts for us to play around with. They're reminders to practice. And if they don't help as such, then we can just dismiss it. We don't need to worry about it. In fact, verse 91 said, there's no self-nature, no thought construction, no reality, no Alayavijnana. These indeed are so many discriminations cherished by the ignorant. So they're provisional. We need to use these things, we need to use these teachings rather than cling to them as ideas. Like verse 101, verse 102 is a description of our situation. So we do need to apply our head a little bit. We need to get our head around it to some extent, and then we move on. So there are these four terms: Citta, Alayavijnana, Manas, and Vijnana. And verse 103 says a bit more about them. Citta is always neutral. Manas functions in two ways. The functioning Vijnana is either good or bad. So let's go back to 102. The Citta, mind, and this is mind with a capital M, is the Alayavijnana. Alaya means abode, just as we have the Himalaya, usually pronounced in English as Himalaya, the abode of snow. The Alayavijnana is the abode of consciousness. It's where consciousness lives. It's the root of consciousness. It's which holds everything else. Manas is that which has reflection as its characteristic nature. I'm going to take reflection here in the sense of reflecting, thinking. This is the thinking mind. It apprehends the various sense fields. It says that's a sight, that's a sound. It says that's a good sound. It says that's a good thing, that's a bad thing, that's a desirable thing, that's to be avoided, and so on. And for this reason it's called a Vijnana. There are 6 of these Vijnanas, including the mind, Manas. There's one for each of the senses, because we're not just seeing things the way a camera sees something. We're aware that we're seeing something. This is the Vijnana. This is the consciousness that says we see things. So I suppose in this sense, Manas is that which has reflection, because once it sees something, it can remember it. It can remember it and reflect upon it. These are our thoughts. And so the mind, Manas, is that which perceives thoughts. So moving on to verse 103, Citta is always neutral. This is the Alayavijnana. It makes no judgment on what is within it. It makes no judgment on the thoughts or apparent objects of experience. Manas functions in 2 ways. And this functioning Vijnana is either good or bad. This isn't in any moral sense. It's either reminding us to practice or it's not. When it's not, it's sometimes referred to as the defiled mind, the defiled manas. But the mind can also remind us to practice. And then it has to get out of the way. It points us to the Alayavijnana, the Citta, and then behaves itself. So like verse 101, these two verses are again reminders to practice. Most of the time we're caught up in Vijnana, in the discriminating consciousness. We're caught up in sense experiences. We're caught up in the belief that we're experiencing something real, something out there. Then we remember we're enlightenment practitioners. This is the manas operating in a good way. This is the Vijnana of manas operating in a good way. And we remember that which is neutral, mind, Citta, Alayavijnana. We remember that which is beyond our moods. We dig through our moods, our essential tone, and come back to the relief and joy of our essential liberation. And then, as I said about verse 91, we can leave it behind. And more become established in what verse 92 calls the body of transformation. We become more and more established in our enlightenment practice.